It's nice to be early by 1 or 2 minutes so that we can be all settled and ready to take off.
Very good.
ओके, हमारी घड़ी में 7:30 बजे हैं. ठीक है, करेक्ट है आपके पास भी? आप सचिन आरंभ करेंगे क्या?
यस मैम.
ठीक है, 7:30 बज गए ना? जय गुरुदेव, स्वागतम, वेलकम टू ऑल.
Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev, Vijay Lakshmi. Nice to see you. So today we will begin chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita. But before we begin, I would like to recap first chapter because that way we can connect to what we have discussed in chapter 1. We all heard that already, but in 5 minutes I will recap it, the chapter 1. But before I do that, let us begin with the Sahana vavatu. Go ahead, please. Ghanshyam ji and Mukesh ji, Sahana vavatu.
Sahanam bhavatu Sahano bhavatu Sahaviryam karavavahe Tejasvinavaditamastu Avidvishamahe. Om Shanti Shanti.
Jai Gurudev. In chapter 1, Vyasa Bhagavan is setting the ground for the supreme knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to unfold.
9 बजे के आसपास हुआ था. 7:30 से 9 बजे के आसपास हुआ.
हाँ, सब लोग म्यूट रखना प्लीज. Bhagavad Gita starts with the word dharma. Dharma is that invincible power of nature, which is the basis of everything in life. It maintains existence and supports evolution. So what does evolution mean? Evolution means growing from a lower state to a higher state. And this happens in 2 opposing forces, creative forces and destructive forces. When we support creative forces, that action results in good. Something good will happen. And supporting destructive forces results in evil. So man has freedom of action and he can choose good or evil. We always have a choice. Doing good results in happiness and doing bad results in suffering. Life is as we want it, either suffering or joy. As you sow, so shall you reap. And then there is Sanatana Dharma. The great lawgiver and great Maharshi Manu has beautifully described 10 qualities of Dharma in Manusmriti as follows. There is one shloka which has all these 10 qualities. Dhruti, Kshama, Damasteyam, Shaucham, Indriya Nigraha, Dhir, Vidya, Satyam, Akrodha, Dashakam, Dharma Lakshanaha. This is in 6th chapter, 92nd verse in Manusmriti. So what does this mean? Dhriti means persisting to do something in spite of having any difficulty. Kshama means forgiveness. Dama means self-control. Asteya means not to take other people's possessions. Shaucham means purity, purity of mind, heart, as well as external purity. Indriya Nigraha means control of senses. Dhi means improvement of intellect. Vidya means acquisition of accurate knowledge. Satya means truth. Akrodha means abstaining from anger. So these are all very good qualities. And how do we develop these qualities? With transcendental meditation. With regular practice, we develop all these qualities. And one who develops all these qualities becomes enlightened. So it is as simple as that. We just have to, do meditation morning and evening, and all these good qualities begin to develop in us. And we have often heard in scriptures, dharmo rakshati rakshitaha. That means those who follow dharma, dharma protects them. Sanatana dharma was practiced in ancient India, as a result of which there was peace and harmony in Bharat. And this is proven by scientific research in the study which showed Maharshi effect. What does Maharshi effect mean? It means that when square root of 1% of population participates in Transcendental Meditation Siddhi group program, quality of life improves as evidenced by increase in positive trends and decrease in negative trends in the society. That means decreased crime rate, including homicide and suicide rates, decrease in sickness and hospital admissions, and decrease in accident rates. So when you think, you will realize that something is happening, because even though a small percentage of people are meditating, it is having a good effect on the whole society. And Dr. Curly King said, quote, "There must be some field common to each individual's awareness, which, when enlivened, produces positive effects even in those who have not yet started the practice of transcendental meditation." So other people also get affected, because in our group practice, we are transcending and experiencing that level of Atma. So that is the cause why when people are meditating in groups, we are radiating peace and bliss in our surroundings. And in chapter 1, in verse 14, the body is compared to a chariot. It stands on the battlefield of life as a vehicle for the natural process of evolution. The senses are compared to horses, which are white. White symbolizes sattva or purity. That means the chariot was driven under the influence of purity or righteousness. This is the chariot ratha of Arjuna, where Sri Krishna Bhagavan is the charioteer, Sarathi. That's why he's called as Partha Sarathi. And then as we go on in chapter 1, another very important point is brought out, and that is Sri Krishna Bhagavan's first utterance and the effect it had on Arjuna. So in the beginning, Arjuna is getting all excited and angry at Kauravas and getting ready to fight. So when Sri Krishna Bhagavan had seen that Arjuna was angry, and Krishna Bhagavan knows anger is a great enemy. It reduces one's strength, and anger is sign of weakness. Krishna Bhagavan wants to teach Arjuna the art of war and how to be firm, But wisdom cannot be given to a man unless he asks for it and is ready for it. So to produce the desired result in Arjuna, Sri Krishna Bhagavan speaks one short sentence in verse 25. He says, Partha, see these Kurus gathered together. This is the first utterance of Sri Krishna Bhagavan in Bhagavad Gita. So when Sri Krishna Bhagavan addresses Arjuna as Partha, which means son of Pritha, Pritha is another name for Arjuna's mother Kunti. Arjuna is reminded of his mother and of love that connects son to mother. It is this tender bond of love that develops into all family and social relationships that maintain a family, in society, a nation, and the world. Seeing all his dear ones together in one glance, Arjuna's whole heart swells with love. Now, there is a change in Arjuna's thinking level. His heart is fully developed and is full of compassion, and his mind is also fully developed and he's fully aware of his duty as a king to fight and protect his citizens. However, there is no harmony between the two, the heart and mind. These, by their very existence as two, hold the possibility of suffering. When they are united and when they are in harmony, suffering cannot arise. So, Maharshi said, duality is the fundamental cause of suffering. But the question comes up, when the entire field of life is dual in nature, we are in dilemma quite a few times in our life. So then how can life be free from suffering? So Maharshi gave us very simple answer. Infusion into the field of duality, a non-dual element which blesses man's life with a status unaffected by suffering, even while he remains in the field where suffering is possible. And this we will be appreciating more as the discourse advances. So that's the summary of chapter 1. Now we will begin chapter 2. Mala, please. Unmute, please, Rajan. Rajan, unmute and recite last 2 verses of chapter 1. Is there a problem, Rajan?
Jai Gurudev Bhagini. Am I audible, Bhagini?
Yes.
A mala of last 2 shlokas, right?
Right.
Yes. Yedi mama pratikaram ashastram shastrapanayah dhartarashtrarane hanyo tanme kshemataram bhavet. It were better for me if the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapons in hand, should slay me, unresisting and unarmed in battle. Sanjaya uvacha eva muktvarjuna sankhye rathopastha upavishat visrajya sasharam chapam Shoka samvignamanasaha. Sanjaya said, having spoken thus at the time of battle, casting away arrow and bow, Arjuna sat down on the seat of the chariot, his mind overwhelmed with sorrow. Jai Gurudev.
Now we go on to the first shloka of chapter 2. Samskrita shloka, please.
जय गुरुदेव अथ द्वितीयोऽध्यायः सांख्ययोगः संजय उवाच तं तथा कृपयाविष्टम् अश्रुपूर्णाकुलेक्षणम् विषीदन्तमिदं वाक्यम् उवाच मधुसूदनः संजय उवाच तं तथा कृपयाविष्टम् अश्रुपूर्णाकुलेक्षणम् विषीदन्तमिदं वाक्यम् उवाच मधुसूदनः Sanjaya said to him, thus overcome by compassion, full of sorrow, his eyes distressed and filled with tears, Madhusudana, Bhagwan Krishna spoke these words. Jai Gurudev.
Who is reading commentary?
Jai Gurudev. Madhusudana, the slayer of the demon Madhu. The use of this word indicates that a mighty power is rising to put an end to Arjuna's paralyzing state of suspension. Even a mind as highly alert and intelligent as was Arjuna's had become caught in a situation which was out of control. His heart could not be reconciled with his mind. His love of kinsmen with the call of duty to destroy evil. On the practical level, this is like wanting to remain in darkness and yet be in the light. Arjuna has set himself a task which is impossible unless he attains a state of consciousness which will justify any action of his and will allow him even to kill in love, in support of the purpose of evolution. Arjuna could not reconcile killing and loving. This is no weakness on his part and does not detract from his greatness. Any man of similar high development would arrive at this state of suspension between heart and mind. Arjuna was a man of dynamic nature. His heart was full of love, yet he could not at this time love his dear ones. His mind was clear, alert and full of purpose, yet he could not at this time act according to its dictates. Held in suspension as he was, he could not fight and satisfy his mind, nor could he love his dear ones and satisfy his heart. For this reason, he was full of sorrow. Arjuna was not confused, as commentators in general have portrayed him. His heart and mind were at the height of alertness, but they could not show him a line of action to fulfill their contradictory aspirations. Even this could not throw Arjuna off his balance. For Sanjaya says, eyes distressed and filled with tears. Had he been off his balance, his eyes would have been vacant, but they had a life in them. Distress is seen in them, and they express the heart through tears. The distress seen in the eyes gives expression to his great concern, and this shows mental alertness. The sequence of the expressions used in this verse is of great significance in arriving at the truth of Arjuna's condition. Overcome by compassion shows that his heart is filled with compassion alone. This expression that follows is full of sorrow. If the heart is full of compassion, then there is no place in it for an emotion of such a dissimilar quality as sorrow. This makes it clear that the phrase full of sorrow does not refer to Arjuna's heart. It does not describe an emotion, but only the state of his mind. Thus, Arjuna's heart was full of compassion and his mind full of sorrow. His state should not be misunderstood as indicating weakness or confusion. This verse shows Arjuna in his full stature, at the height of his intelligence, sensitivity, and alertness, and at the same time without any line of action to follow. This condition of suspension is of value, for it provides a real basis for divine intelligence. At first sight, it appears to be the result of circumstances, but it is in fact produced by the first word of Sri Krishna Bhagavan on the battlefield. The purity of Arjuna's life, receiving a wave of love from Sri Krishna Bhagavan, developed into a state of suspension and prepared the ground for the divine wisdom to dawn. Here is the picture of a man of the world who is going to receive the greatest divine wisdom ever revealed to man. In order to find the real Arjuna, on whom the blessing came, we must look beyond the appearance of tears and distress. The outer structure of tears and distress serves to protect the inner glory of consciousness in a state of suspension. It is like the bitter skin of an orange, which contains sweet juice within it. The apparent phenomenal face of the world is not so attractive, but within it is the altar of God, whose light sustains our life. Sri Krishna Bhagavan will not allow even the outer aspect of Arjuna's life to look sorrowful. He will improve the appearance also. And with that in view, he shocks Arjuna as he begins his speech. Jai Gurudev.
Scientific research based on Shloka 1. So, in this scientific study, we see that there is an increased self-actualization in transcendental meditation practitioners. Some of you may not know what self-actualization means. It means that people are at their very best and have self-fulfillment. And this experience of self-fulfillment happens 3 times more in those who practice transcendental meditation. In general population, only 1% of population scores on the highest scales of self-actualization. Whereas with transcendental meditation practitioners, it is 38%. And this is a 10-year study. So there is a lot of validity for this study. 38% in TM practitioners as opposed to 1% in general population. So that's very significant. And the credit goes to one research scientist. His name is Skip Alexander. And he did the original research on this. He's no more, but he was very highly respected, and he was a governor at Maharshi International University. So now we move on to the study of the first verse in second chapter. Second chapter is very important because it is the soul of Bhagavad Gita, while all those that follow form the body. Hope and fulfillment are the blessings of this glorious chapter. And the chapter expounds Brahma Vidya in its completeness. Brahma Vidya means the wisdom of the Absolute, both in its theoretical and practical aspects. And it presents the central idea of the entire theme of Bhagavad Gita. And this chapter has seed ideas which are developed in the following chapters. So in first shloka, we see that Arjuna continues to lament as he did in first chapter. So now he has to rise to a state of consciousness which will justify any action and allow him to even kill in love in support of dharma. And the sequence of words used in this shloka is important. First, it says that his heart is full of compassion. Then it says Arjuna is in sorrow. Why? Because he could not reconcile killing and loving. And so his eyes are filled with tears, which shows his concern for others. And Maharshi said that this state should not be misunderstood as weakness because he has tears in his eyes or confusion, as some commentators have said. There is no confusion in Arjuna's mind, but he is in a state of suspension. And this state of suspension was necessary so that Sri Krishna Bhagavan can give Arjuna the divine knowledge. You cannot give it to an angry person or who is not ready for it. And we have seen that one short sentence spoken by Sri Krishna Bhagavan in chapter 1, verse 25, when he was called as Partha. Partha, see all the Kurus in battlefield. It produced that state of suspension because Arjuna was reminded of his mother. So what we see here is the picture of Arjuna with the outward experience of sorrow and distress, but with divinity of God inside, because God is inside of us, this sustains our life. It is just like an orange which has a bitter skin outside, but the juice inside is sweet. But Sri Krishna Bhagavan wants to improve outer appearance also. So he shocks Arjuna in the next 2 shlokas. So now we will move on to the next shloka, second shloka. But before that, if there are any questions, please go ahead. Or if anybody wants to make any other main points or appealing points, if you like something in the shloka, please go ahead.
Jagudev Hemaji, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, continue.
Anitaji, go ahead.
I would like to give chance to somebody to speak.
Okay, if there is anybody else, please go ahead. Otherwise, Anitaji, you can go ahead.
Okay. So if nobody says, I wanted to add a little bit on self-actualization as the scientific research.
Okay.
One. And second is to give a more comprehensive definition of self-actualization because it involves us as an individual for the improvement. So in the scientific research in Maharishi's, this book is already written that it is associated with the spontaneous unfoldment of openness. Then we are more receptive, we have a more caring attitude, we are more positive, we are more spontaneous, and we are ready to appreciate. The takeaway point is when we read Bhagavad Gita, there's something that we take with us after each session. So here what we take with us is increase consideration for others, as Arjuna has shown in this verse, increase helpful and caring nature, and also greater ability for being good and a great ability to appreciate others. So we have a takeaway point from this verse and also a more deeper definition of self-actualization. Thank you, Jagudev.
Okay, so those are good points. You elaborated on self-actualization and how it's spontaneous, how TM spontaneously increases all these qualities that lead to self-actualization, which is ultimate goal is self-fulfillment. So it is very clear in this study and should be very encouraging for people to, do TM. Any other points? So now we will move on to the second shloka. Samskrita, please.
Jai Gurudev. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Kutastvakashmalamidam Vishame Samupasthitam Anaryajustamasvargyam Akirtikaram Arjuna श्रीभगवानुवाच कुतस्त्वाकश्मलमिदम् विषमे समुपस्थितम् अनार्यजुष्टमस्वर्ग्यम् अकीर्तिकरमर्जुन। The blessed Lord said, whence has this blemish alien to honorable men, causing disgrace and opposed to heaven, come upon you, Arjuna, at this untimely hour? Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev. Problems are not solved on the level of the problems. Analyzing a problem to find its solution is like trying to restore freshness to a leaf by treating the leaf itself, whereas the solution lies in watering the root. Arjuna, in the previous 21 verses, has raised basically all the problems that may confront any life at any time. When the Lord begins to answer, he does not devote a moment to Arjuna's arguments. He simply dismisses everything that Arjuna has said without analyzing it, because by analyzing each statement, it would not be possible to resolve the situation. All problems of life arise from some weakness of mind. All the weakness of mind is due to the mind's ignorance of its own essential nature, which is universal and the source of infinite energy and intelligence. This ignorance of one's own self is the basis of all problems, sufferings, and shortcomings in life. In order to root out any problem of life, it is only necessary to be brought out of ignorance, to be brought to knowledge. In order to bring anyone to knowledge, it is first necessary to bring him to a state of mind where he will listen. Arjuna being in a state of suspension, Bhagavan Sri Krishna said something to him which would shake his mind and make him capable of hearing and understanding. In this verse, Bhagavan Sri Krishna appraises Arjuna's situation in words which suggest its solution. The first word spoken by Bhagavan Sri Krishna in this discourse expresses the whole philosophy of life, the whole of Vedanta, the world of forms and phenomena in its ever-changing nature, and the absolute never-changing reality of transcendental nature. Both are full. Purna Madah, Purna Midam. Whence then has come this blemish of ignorance which causes sorrow? Again, as the present is composed of the two fulls, the blemish does not belong to any present time. That is why it is untimely at any hour. Arjuna has presented his problems in verses 28 to 46 of the first chapter, how Bhagavan Sri Krishna sees the situation and disapproves of it is clear from the expressions of this verse. Whence indicates the baselessness of the whole argument. This word runs parallel to verse 28, which provides a basis for Arjuna's argument. Blemish refers to the content of verses 29 to 31. Alien to honorable men expresses the nature of verses 32 to 35. Causing disgrace refers to verses 36 to 39. Opposed to heaven refers to verses 40 to 46. Bhagavan Sri Krishna exclaims to Arjuna, "Whence has this blemish come upon you?" He speaks with surprise and uses the word blemish to epitomize Arjuna's overall state and way of thinking. The word blemish, accompanied by alien to honorable men, causing disgrace and opposite to heaven, and untimely hour, hit Arjuna hard. His alert mind and heart received a severe shock which jolted him out of the state of suspension. Immediately, he lost confidence in the way he was thinking. This made him look to Bhagavan Sri Krishna. The following verse brings another shock to Arjuna and strengthens the effect produced by this verse. The Lord implies that whether surroundings and circumstances are favorable or unfavorable, men of honor and grace always act in a way that leads them to the glory here on earth and in heaven. Jai Gurudev.
Scientific research, please. In this study, greater moral maturity is shown. So what this study is showing is in practitioners of transcendental meditation, there is greater moral reasoning and moral maturity. And in other studies previously, we have seen that transcendental meditation increases EEG coherence. And this increased EEG coherence is associated with improvement in moral reasoning that is shown in this study. And also another point is that the practice of transcendental meditation Siddhi program enhances moral thinking even more. So there is an incentive to go for advanced courses such as TM Siddhi program also. So in this shloka, what is explained is how Sri Krishna Bhagavan gives a jolt. He shocks Arjuna. And the reason why Sri Krishna Bhagavan did that. We have seen that Arjuna is a strong man, but he has tears in his eyes. He's feeling distressed. His bow is slipping. His skin is burning. All the symptoms which show that he's not mentally stable. This is what we see on the surface. Like the orange skin is bitter, but inside juice is sweet. And Krishna Bhagavan knows that Arjuna is a strong man. So he has to, Krishna Bhagavan wants to improve both inside and outside. So he says something to shock him. And how does he do that? By saying, Arjuna, how and from where this stain has come upon you, blemish, stain. This is a dark mark on the purity of you and your personality. So this blemish is not a quality of honorable men. Arya. Arya is an honorable person, noble person. And Krishna Bhagavan used the word anaryam, which is not noble. and it is asvargyam. And this kind of thinking and behavior is opposed to heaven, and it brings disgrace, akirti. And you don't want all those things. You have to rise above those. So what Sri Krishna Bhagavan is doing here basically is he's not analyzing problems at all, and he's simply dismissing them. He's just not paying any attention, because analyzing the problems on surface level will not solve the problem. Why? Because the root cause of such problem arise from weakness of mind, which is due to the mind's ignorance of its own essential nature. So what is the essential nature of mind and Atma? There is an inexhaustible reservoir of energy, intelligence, and happiness within us, inside of us, that is called as Sat, Chit, and Ananda. It's already there. But if you do not know that you have it, if you are ignorant, this ignorance is the cause of the problem. Because if you know that there is a box in your house, there is money in it, you will go there and you get the money and then you can spend it. But if you don't know that there is a box with money in it inside your house somewhere, you don't go there and you don't get the money. And you are always thinking, oh, I don't have money. So that is why when one is in ignorance of the fact that there is energy, intelligence, and happiness inside of us, and this energy, intelligence, and happiness, Sat Chit Ananda, it is not limited. It is unlimited. It is unbounded. So when we tap into this source, then when we come out of meditation, we bring it with us into activity. So that is the technique. How do we get to the source? By doing transcendental meditation. And when we transcend, we get in touch, we get in contact with this reservoir, which is unbounded. So all we need to do is do TM and transcend, and this will help us to root out the problems. Another important point is in these two verses, this is second one and the next one, third shloka, Sri Krishna Bhagavan is reminding Arjuna of his essential nature. So we are saying essential nature of mind, essential nature of Atma. What is it? It is unbounded and it is eternal Brahman. And Maharshi mentioned Tattvamasi. He's saying, Sri Krishna Bhagavan is saying, Arjuna, that, Tat is that, Tvam, you, Asi, you are that unbounded eternal Brahman that is already there inside of you. And this is the essential, most important point. These two verses of Sri Krishna's exhortation shows that they contain, in essence, the entire teaching of Bhagavad Gita. That we realize that one is that unbounded eternal Brahman, Tattvamasi. This is one of the Mahavakyas. And when we realize that I am same as that unbounded eternal Brahman, my consciousness is same as that of Brahman, then we have realized Tattvamasi. We realized we have that experience of Brahman inside of us. And with regular practice of meditation, we go through stages of higher states of consciousness. And as we rise in higher states of consciousness, we ultimately reach the state of ultimate reality, which is Brahman. So I'll stop here and invite any questions. or comments?
As an individual, I think at every situation, we are put in a jinx where we need to take up from these words what way of life we would like to adopt. Is it an Aryanic way or an unaryanic way? Because if we fall prey to the ignorance of the mind, we cannot ascend to the higher states of consciousness.
Yes. So that's why Sri Krishna Bhagavan mentioned to Arjuna, he's reminding him, he's telling him, Arjuna, you're not what you're thinking. You know, you don't know what to do at this time, and, you know, you seem to be in distress, but that's not what you are. The essential nature of you is that you are Sat Chit Ananda. And so you have to rise to that level. It's there inside of us, but we have to do something to experience that. And that's why in meditation, we sit down, we close eyes, and then we do something, and that is take the mantra and go inside. And so that doing something, that small effort we have to put in to do meditation, that's what is required. And somebody asked me, if Brahman is there everywhere and it's already in there, why do you have to do anything to get there? Because we have to open the door. We have to go knock on the door, and then the door will open. God is inside. You are out sitting outside the door, and the door is closed. If you sit there and say, oh, God is everywhere, God knows everything, God knows I'm sitting here, so he should give me his darshan, it doesn't happen that way. You have to knock on the door. And that knocking on the door is what we do in transcendental meditation. We do meditation and we have darshan, because we transcend and we experience that silence inside of us. And that silence is so beautiful, such a beautiful feeling of settled mind and the silence when we transcend. And in order to go there, all we need to do is meditate and we will get there. So that's the point, Krishna Bhagavan made in this verse. And, he continues in the second verse, so that, Arjuna is now fully, alert and say, oh, this is not the way I should be thinking. And so in the next few verses, of course, he continues, and then eventually he surrenders to Krishna Bhagavan and says, I don't know what to do now, so please tell me. So we will get to that. That'll be in the 7th verse of chapter 2. We will do that next week. But any other questions? That was a good point you brought out, Madhavi. Any other questions or comments? Please go ahead. Okay. Now we can move on to the next shloka. Samskrita, please.
Jai Gurudev. Klaibhyam masmagamah partha naitattvayupapadyate kshudram hridaya daurbalyam tyaktvottishta parantapa. Klaibhyam masmagamah partha naitattvayupapadyate kshudram hridaya daurbalyam tyaktvottishta parantapa. Partha, yield not to unmanliness. It is unworthy of you. Shake off this paltry faint-heartedness. Stand up O scorcher of enemies.
Jai Gurudev. Again, this verse shows psychological skill in handling a problem. Here, Sri Krishna Bhagavan uses the word unmanliness, at the same time reminding Arjuna of his honorable heritage by calling him Partha, the son of Pritha. This is to neutralize in Arjuna what Lord Krishna, Sri Krishna Bhagavan, calls faint-heartedness. Sri Krishna Bhagavan realized that when he first addressed him as Partha, asking him to behold the Kurus assembled in the battle, he awoke in him the love of his mother Pritha, and he knew that the great wave of love instilled by him in Arjuna's heart was responsible for his present state of suspension. Therefore, to bring Arjuna back to his initial preparedness to fight, it was necessary to expand the one-sided nature of the love produced by the word Partha. This is the reason why Lord Krishna here again uses Partha and associates it with faint-heartedness. Having produced this effect in the heart, it was at once necessary to direct the flow of Arjuna's mind away from the state of suspension towards action. So the Lord tells him to stand up. In this way, the Krishna Bhagavan sets up an impulse in his mind towards fighting and immediately supplements it by reminding him of his status as a scorcher of enemies. The Krishna Bhagavan wants to stop Arjuna at once from thinking in a manner that will lead him nowhere. He tells Arjuna that this way does not belong to him, for he has always been a dynamic personality. It is unworthy of you. This saying of the Lord's also has a deeper meaning. It is unworthy of you reminds Arjuna of his essential nature. That thou art, declare the Upanishads, unbounded eternal being. You should breathe universal life and not fall prey to faint-heartedness, for that belongs to the field of ignorance. Asking him to shake off his faint-heartedness, Sri Krishna Bhagavan qualifies it by paltry. By this, he means to encourage Arjuna. The weakness he has to overcome is not great, but just a failing of the heart. Sri Krishna Bhagavan wants to convey to Arjuna that when love grows in man's heart, his outlook becomes more universal, and he should become stronger and more dynamic. But that in his case, this has not happened. Arjuna has not gained a universal outlook. This expresses a great metaphysical truth. Ignorance has no material substance. It is just an illusion which should be easy to shake off. Unfortunately, this ignorance has deprived Arjuna of the strength that the wave of love should naturally bring. Certainly, as a great warrior, Arjuna is brave by nature. That is why the Lord seems only to remind him of what he is, unbounded and eternal in his absolute nature, and the scorcher of enemies in his relative nature, in his human form. A close study of these two verses, which form the Lord's first exhortation, shows that they contain in essence the entire teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. Jai Gurudev, ma'am.
A scientific research, please. So this study shows that there is a decreased level of anxiety in those that are practicing transcendental meditation program. It's quite simple and not much to comment on. So now we go on to the main points. Anita ji.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So the main point here is very beautifully again handled by Krishna Bhagwan. As we have seen, problems arise from the weakness of mind. And why there is a weakness of mind? Due to ignorance. Here Krishna Bhagwan is handling the whole situation in a very psychological, skillful manner. At one hand, he is using the word unmanliness, and at the same time also, he is telling Arjuna of his honorable heritage by calling him Partha. And again, he is invoking him in the quality that why you are so faint-hearted. So the three qualities, unmanliness and of an honorable heritage, these now are coming part of Arjuna's thinking. And then he goes further to say, Krishna Bhagwan, that you are the Partha. You have already been invoked in love in that previous verse that Krishna Bhagwan spoke to Arjuna. Now he feels my responsibility is to see the effect of heart and now turn his mind towards action, because Arjuna is in the state of suspension. And how will he take him to action is that he says that your thinking will take you nowhere. It will be unworthy of you. If you are what you are, that thou art, that means you are the unbounded eternal being. So if you are that thou art, then how can you be faint-hearted? How can you be lacking confidence? How can you not be brave? How can you be anxious? So Krishna Bhagwan is now preparing Arjuna towards a more stronger mind, more stronger heart, and he's telling him, if you have heart of which is full of love for your kinsmen, that still shows that you do not have heart full of love, because you're not thinking of universal love. You're only thinking the love for your kinsmen. And that is not how it should be. If you have love for the universe. And this quality will come to you as a wave of love grows naturally in you. So you have to come out of that suspension state, Arjuna. And how you will come? You are the scorcher of enemies. Even Arjun, Shri Krishna Bhagwan is, because he slayed the demon and all that we do in the next verse. But even Arjuna, by its birth, by its dharma, is the scorcher of enemies. So he says, even that in the relative form as a human being. So this whole verse is there, which Shri Krishna Bhagwan prepares Arjun for a better right action, for better mind, for better heart, and then elevating his heart and mind and making him go into the better field. Thank you, Jai Gurudev.
Yeah, good day. You're off camera, Anita ji. It'll be nice to see you when you're speaking and when people ask questions, you can answer.
Stopped. Is it okay?
Yeah,
Right.
now we can see you. Yes, now we have audio and video. Okay.
Okay.
Beautiful points have been brought out here. Any questions or comments?
As a scorcher of enemies, when we are referring it to Arjuna, maybe can we think that at this moment Arjuna is fighting with the internal enemies, like he's engulfed with sorrow and delusion? Can we treat now Krishna is asking him, rise up, be a man of action and do your duty? You even fight with these internal enemies?
Anita ji?
No, he's talking about scorcher of enemies at the relative field. It is very clearly mentioned in the last paragraph. Sri Krishna Bhagavan says, unbounded and eternal in his absolute nature, and scorcher of enemies in his relative form. Not at the absolute level. There are two levels. So at the moment, we are talking on the relative level. Is it clear, Madhvi?
Yes.
Yes. So here, yeah, Sri Krishna Bhagavan is telling him to stand up and fight the enemies. And with the internal enemies that you just mentioned, we know that happens with our regular practice of transcendental meditation. Morning and evening we do meditation, and then gradually over a period of time, any weaknesses that we have, any bad habits or any situations that are not life supporting, say like smoking or drinking, some people have that problem, they find that gradually they lose interest in smoking because they get the happiness of smoking by doing meditation. So they find inner happiness. So this happens over a period of time. It doesn't happen overnight, but with regular practice, we grow in all these qualities of peace and bliss. And so then there is no need to stimulate your mind or heart by taking external substances like smoking or drinking or drugs. So here it is definitely Sri Krishna Bhagavan is telling to stand up and fight the enemies. Okay, any other points or questions? So we move on to the last shloka for today, fourth verse, please, Samskrita.
Jai Gurudev. Arjuna uvacha katham bhishmamaham sankhye dronam cha madhusudana ishubhih pratiyotsyami pujarha varisudana. Arjuna uvacha katham bhishmamaham sankhye dronam cha madhusudana. Ishubhih pratiyotsyami pujarha varisudana. Arjuna said, how shall I fight Bhishma and Drona with arrows on the battlefield, O Madhusudana? Worthy of reverence are they, O slayer of enemies. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev. Arjuna addresses Bhagavan Sri Krishna as Madhusudana, slayer of the demon Madhu, while recounting the names of Bhishma and Drona. Thereby, he silently suggests to Bhagavan Sri Krishna, "You are the slayer of demons. How can you ask me to slay these noble elders? You are the slayer of enemies. How can you ask me to kill those who are worthy of reverence?" This shows Arjuna's alertness of mind even in this state of suspension. If one is alert and awake in heart and mind, there is always hope of rising above any time of trial. Arjuna presses his point further in the next verse. Jai Gurudev.
Scientific research, please. So this study shows that those who practice transcendental meditation are more caring in nature. They're more helping to others. They have a helping nature. And they are more forgiving. And they have more consideration for others. So, Anita ji, main points, please.
In this verse, a very short verse, but it has full of great value, because here now we see how Arjuna now addresses Krishna Bhagwan. He says that you may be the slayer of demons. You may have done all this, but do you think I can do something like this for Bhishma and Dronacharya, who are worthy of such respect and adoration and veneration? How can I treat them? How can I treat them as enemies and shower arrows at them? Because they are the ones from whom he's learned everything, the art of war, the knowledge. Now, you don't think that I'm going away and I'm not courageous enough, but I have so much, as the scientific research says, I have so much of care and respect for my elders. So this verse very clearly shows that in spite of the Arjuna's mind and heart in that state of suspension, yet Arjuna is alert, he is awake, and we understand that there is always hope of rising above if any time such a situation arises. And in this case, what is the situation? That he is in such a confused state that how can he shower arrows or fight his own gurus, fight the people from whom he has learned. So in a practical aspect of life, we see how much respect each one of us should have for people who are older to us, people who are our gurus, our teachers. So whenever we teach Bhagavad Gita, even to children and in school, there's so many takeaway points for it, which are often applicable in our daily life. Thank you, Jai Gurudev.
Thank you, Anita ji. Any questions or comments on this? Okay, so now we have completed all 4 shlokas. We will do group meditation, and then we will have Parayana of the first half of 2nd chapter by our Vedic Pandits. So let's sit comfortably and close eyes and begin to meditate. Those who have not learned to meditate yet, just close eyes and go inwards. Man ko antarmukh karna. Okay. Let's close eyes and meditate. Jai Gurudev. Take a minute or so and slowly open the eyes. Slowly open the eyes. अब मैं अपने पंडितों से अनुरोध करती हूँ कि भगवत गीता दूसरी अध्याय का पारायण आरंभ करें।
जी दीदी। जी दीदी। जय गुरुदेव।
जय गुरुदेव।
श्री परमात्मने नमः। भगवता नारायणेन व्यासेनाग्रथितां पुराणेन मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणी भगवती अष्टादशाध्यायिनी भगवत् गीते भवे देशिनी।
जय गुरुदेव।
रुद्रमरुतः कुर्वन्ति देव्यैस्तवै वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थित तद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुषुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः।
एक मिनट can one of you turn off your audio please? There is resound in the audio. एक का खुला रखना ऑडियो, एक का बंद रखना।
डाटा नहीं खत्म हो डाटा नहीं।
तो ज्यादा टाइम नहीं है तो 15 श्लोक पढ़ना बस। ओके।
ओम श्री परमात्मने नमः। अथ द्वितीयोऽध्यायः। संजय उवाच तं तथा कृपयाविष्टम् अश्रुपूर्णाकुलेक्षणम् विषीदन्तमिदं वाक्यम् उवाच मधुसूदनः। श्रीभगवान् वाच कुतस्त्वाकस्मलमिदं विषमे समुपस्थितम् अनार्यजुष्टमश्वर्यम् अकीर्तिकरमर्जुन। लैभ्यं माश्मगमः पार्थानेतत्त्वय्युपपद्यते। क्षुद्रं हृदय दौर्बल्यं त्यक्त्वा तिष्ठ परन्तप। अर्जुन उवाच कथं भीष्ममहं शङ्खे द्रोणं च मधुसूदन। इषुभिः प्रतियोत्स्यामि पूजार्हा वरिसूदन। गुरून् हत्वा हि महानुभावान् श्रेयो भोक्तुं भैक्षमपीह लोके। हत्वार्थकामास्तु गुरून् हैव भुञ्जीय भोगान् रुधिरप्रदिग्धान्। न चैतद्विद्मः कतरन्नो गरीयो यद्वा जयेम यदि वा नो जयेयुः। यानेव हत्वा न जीविषामः तेव स्थिता प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्राः। कार्पण्यदोषोपहतः स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः। यच्छ्रेयस्यान्याश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं साधिमां त्वां प्रपन्नम्। न हि प्रपश्यामि ममानुपद्यात् यच्छोकमुच्छोषणमिन्द्रियाणाम्। अवाप्य भूमा वसपत्नमृद्धम् राज्यं सुराणामपि चाधिपत्यम्। सञ्जय उवाच एवमुक्त्वा ऋषिकेशं गुडाकेशः परन्तप न योत्स्यति गोविन्दम् उक्त्वा तूष्णीं बभूवः। तमुवाच ऋषिकेशः प्रहसन्निव भारत। सेनयोरुभयोर्मध्ये विषीदन्तमिदं वचः। श्रीभगवानुवाच असोच्यानन्वशोश्चस्त्वं प्रज्ञावादांश्च भाषसे। गतासून गतासूंश्च नानुशोचन्ति पण्डिताः। न त्वेवाहं जातु नासं न त्वं नेमे जनाधिपाः। न चैव न भविष्यामः सर्वे मयमतः परम्। देहिनोऽस्मिन् यथा देहे कौमारं यौवनं जरा तथा देहान्तरप्राप्तिर्धीरस्तत्र न मुह्यति। मात्रा स्पर्शास्तु कौन्तेय शीतोष्णसुखदुःखदाः। आगमापायिनो नित्यास्तास्तितिक्षस्व भारत। यं हि न व्यथयन्ते ते पुरुषं पुरुषर्षभ। समदुःखसुखं धीरं सोमृतत्वाय कल्पते। ॐ
जय गुरुदेव। थैंक यू फॉर ब्यूटीफुल रिसाइटेशन। बहुत अच्छा वेद पाठ किया है। Are there any birthdays? No? Okay. Sachin, are there any questions or comments in Ramrajtv chat box? Okay. So we will end our satsang now with Shanti Path. कृपया शांति पाठ कीजिए।
हरि ओम शान्तिरन्तरिक्षं शान्तिः पृथिवी शान्तिरापः शान्तिरोपनयः शान्तिः पाणसपातयः तान्तर्वसवे देवाः शान्तिर्ब्रह्मा शान्तिः सर्वगं शान्तिः शान्तिरेव शान्तिः सामा शान्तिः ततो यथा समीहसे ततो न अभयं कुरु सन्ताः कुरपराजाभ्यो भयन्ताः पाशुभ्याः हरिः ॐ ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः जय गुरुदेव जय महर्षि
Jai Gurudev. Thank you all for joining. We will end the meeting now and we will meet again next Friday, 7:30 p.m. as usual. Jai Gurudev.
जय गुरुदेव
Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev, Hemaji.
All those who can come on videos, please come. Nice to see you. Hinduja.
Jai Gurudev Hemaji.
Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev Hemaji.
Jai Gurudev Padma. Made it. Very good. Bela, Jai Gurudev. Bani, Jai Gurudev. I don't know, somebody is on iPhone. Jai Gurudev. I can't see their name. Jai Gurudev to happy girl. Okay. So we will end now. Sachin, you can end the meeting now, please. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.